I remember when I first said it out loud to someone, and it was someone random, but it was a big moment. And they said, why are you working and training so hard? And I said, oh, I'm planning this walk around the world. It's like, wow, I said it out loud. Well, here we go.
Welcome back to Talking with Teri TV. I know that we all have crazy ideas from time to time, but our guest today thought, maybe I'll just walk around the world, because why not? I can do that. Welcome, Letofsky, to the show.
Thanks for having me, but I drove here today, so don't tell anyone. Okay.
Right.
Hate to ruin my reputation,
Yes.
I drove here.
Oh, good. Well, good. I'm glad. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now I have been known by my family to have lots of crazy ideas from time to time, but never once did I say, maybe I should just walk around the world. Like, how did that idea come about?
It came about in childhood. I remember I was 12 years old. I was having a pretty good childhood.
Okay.
And it was in that era, that generation when you fell out of the house in the morning and played with all your friends all day, and right? You made up games and all the rest of it. So there was a lot of exploration and trial and error throughout that kind of childhood.
Yes.
And
did you grow up in the Midwest? I mean, did you grow up,
I was growing up in Minnesota.
Okay, I'm a Midwest girl, so I feel like I can relate to what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then I started to read the paper that summer of 1974. So I know you're thinking, well, how old is that? Okay, so I'm 61 now. We can move on with our lives.
Okay.
But I started reading the paper and feeling like such a grown-up, and sitting at the breakfast table and reading about these places in 1974, reading about Vietnam, reading about Thailand, a strange place called Australia, where their seasons are the opposite of ours. It got me really curious about the world and how it ticks. And then one day reading the paper, I saw this picture of a man walking down an empty road with a big buggy pulling behind him. And I leaned in to read the caption, and it said, David Kunst walking down Highway 6 in Colorado on his way home to Minnesota to become the first man to walk around the world. And I thought, what? I didn't know you were allowed to think of such a thing if you were from Minnesota.
Yeah.
So it got me really curious about the world and how it ticks, and how you could go see the world like that. And you know what I did is I put the paper down, I walked outside, walked around the house for 3 hours, going, I can do that. Next stop, the world. But it triggered something in me, like, that's how I want to go discover the world someday. Heck, I could put one foot in front of the other. Who can't do that? So it stayed in my head, but I never really said it out loud to anyone. Even my mother says, I never heard you talk about that. But I think I'm the kind of person, once you say it out loud, it's a commitment. And
for sure.
I wasn't ready to make a commitment. Although through the years, okay, that's when I was 12. So through the teens, through the 20s, into the 30s. It was always there, but it was more tucked in the back of my head. And it started coming more into the forefront. And I thought, it's now or never. And so I decided it was now. And I decided to finally do that walk I'd always wanted to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think that's true. Like, I know that personally in my life, like when I speak it out loud and I speak it in front of people, like it is a commitment. It is like, okay, now I'm having to show up and fulfill that, right?
Yeah, I remember when I first said it out loud to someone, and it was someone random. It's not like I announced it to a great family member. It was someone random. But it was a big moment. And they said, why are you working and training so hard? And I said, oh, I'm planning this walk around the world. It's like, wow, I said it out loud. Well, here we go. Now it's a commitment. Like, that person gives two hoots.
Right, like you paid.
Right, they're going to call me out on it if I didn't end up doing it. But that's what happened.
But there's the power of our words. Like, we are now speaking life into it, right? Anytime I'm working with clients and I'm like, okay, what is it? And I'm like, don't say it out loud if you're not ready to go. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to hold you accountable now because we're ready to speak our truth. So,
sometimes when I do speaking engagements now, especially to say high school kids, I'll say the first big step in a big dream is to just say it out loud. So how many of you have a big dream? And they all raise their hand. All right, so who is brave enough to say it out loud today?
Oh, that's so good.
And that is a really big step, isn't it?
Yeah.
Saying it out loud. And I bring that with me today. When I have something new in my world, I hold that to myself.
Okay, so give us the down and dirty of how you got to be like the how, what, where, when, all of that. Like, give us the scoop about, really taking this dream, this thought, this idea into action.
Well, I had traveled before, so I knew that just traveling, aimlessly wandering is very difficult. You've got to have a purpose. You've got to have a vision and a goal. So I knew that I needed that to keep me going. But also, if I'm going to do something this big, it's got to be worth something more than just me out wandering and, So I knew I wanted to do it for a purpose, for something bigger than me. And so I was thinking of all kinds of different things. Now, in the background of my life, there's this world going on where a number of women in my world were being diagnosed with breast cancer.
Okay.
And this is going on around me while I'm thinking, I wonder what I should do this walk for. Right? And I had an aunt going through it, and I had another aunt that died from it, and a friend going through it, and a very prominent community member going through it. So I thought, gosh, what is this breast cancer thing? I should go get a mammogram, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I went to the doctor, and I asked for a mammogram, because that's what you do. And the doctor told me something that changed my life. He said, you don't need to worry about getting a mammogram because breast cancer doesn't run on your mother's side of the family. Don't worry about it. I thought, well, fantastic.
Well, look at me.
Can't get breast cancer. And I let my friends know that when I got back to work that day. They said, that's a lot of fun, that mammogram stuff. And I said, no, don't have to worry about it. And they let me have it. Who told you that? Of course you can get breast cancer. Every woman in the world is at risk for getting breast cancer. And they just reamed me a good one. And I was walking home that night, thinking about everything that had happened during the day. And I had my light bulb moment, that aha moment. And I knew exactly where I was. And I thought, that's what I'll do that walk for that I've always wanted to do. Duh.
Yeah.
And I loved the idea immediately of a woman walking for women.
Yes.
And breast cancer is in every nook and cranny of the world. It's not just the big cities of America.
Right.
And that's when it got real. And I was walking down the road at 10 o'clock at night by myself, talking out loud to myself. Yeah. Could I do it? Could I really do this? Could I walk 15 miles a day every day? How do I deal with the languages? How do I deal with the different cultures? Yeah. How do I afford this? And how do I stay safe? And my head was spinning with all the questions. And that's when I really started planning my walk around the world for breast cancer.
Good for you. Okay, so you're on this walk. You've planned the walk. You got your purpose, you got your passion, and now you're on this walk. What were some of the things that you were surprised by? Maybe just like some of the things that you learned on your own personal discovery on this walk.
My own personal discovery is about being able to take the surprises, the setbacks, the unexpected, and I learned how to, you better accept them and expect them. That's the trick, right? These people that have these big plans, and I'm going to, start this big business, and the first blindside that hits them, they're like, well, who saw that coming? I mean, you better be able to take those setbacks.
Yes.
And I did learn that pretty quick. I think I did not go into that blindly. I had traveled enough on my own and overseas that I knew I could handle it, and I better expect it. Yeah. And you better accept that going in, or you're going to be blindsided. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's our attitude. Our attitude has a direct impact on our outcome, right?
It really does.
And so if we understand that, how we're going to show up, are we going to just kind of, surf the waves, right? Or are we going to, show up and get angry and upset, and because there's a lot of things that we can't control, right? But we can control on how we show up, our attitude, and how we look at life.
That's exactly right. And I knew that when I left, I didn't know how everything was going to pan out, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was very clear on three things. And one is the vision. I was very clear on the vision. I now know, all these years later, in business and in professional development, they tell you this. I didn't know that at the time. I was just keeping clear on my vision and looking at the maps every day and envisioning finishing this portion of it, or being able to picture the finish line. So vision was very clear. Number two, I was ready for hard work. This romanticism of the open road, boy, no. Right. That was slapped out of me a long time ago. So I was ready for hard work.
Yeah.
And I really had the faith. I had the faith that I could handle anything that came my way. I think that the reason I chose to go when I went is there has to be this, I had to be old enough to be able to take the journey, what the world was going to throw at me.
Yeah.
But I had to be young enough to physically take that journey.
Yeah.
And apparently that magical age was 37. It's probably much younger for most people, but for me it was 37. And that gave me the faith that I could handle anything that was going to throw at me, because I didn't know what was going to be thrown at me when I left.
And I can only imagine that this experience and your journey has even just strengthened that faith, right? Like I feel like when we do and accomplish great things, that it's like, okay, and it goes into your memory box of like, okay, if I can do that, I can do anything. You know, if I ran a marathon one time, I'm like, okay, if I can run a marathon and I can survive it, I can run it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just strengthens that ability in ourselves of like, yeah, I can do that. I can do hard things.
Yeah, you know that old mantra, if they can put a man on the moon, they can fill in the blank. And that's what I have in my life. Well, if I can walk through India, you know, during riots, I can do X. So it's a mantra I bring along with me. I'm cursed with that.
So really quickly, before we wrap up and take a quick break, how long from day one starting that journey until you returned back to the United States?
It was 1 day shy of 5 years. 1 day shy for 5 years.
So
I tried to finish.
Forrest Gump got nothing on Paula Letofsky, okay? I'm just saying. Run, Polly, run. Walk, Polly, walk.
I tried to finish on the exact 5-year anniversary, but the place I started, they were having a big festival in that exact location on the day that I was going to finish. Who cares? At the end of the day, no one cares.
No one cares.
So 1 day shy of 5 years.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. What a great spot to wrap up here. We'll be right back with Polly and her amazing journey. What if I told you there's a simple yet scientific way to ensure success? This could be you starting to learn simple, proven, highly effective tools and strategies to attract more money, more clients, more freedom by reprogramming the way we think. Since 2017, we've been gathering women entrepreneurs and business owners to transform limiting beliefs and take action on achieving their wildest dreams. I'm hosting the Unlock Live event again this year. Join a community of like-minded women who are ready to be seen, to be heard for their powerful message that they are here to deliver. April 21st and 22nd in Denver. Read caption below for the early bird discount, and I can't wait to see you there. Hi, and welcome back. We are here with our guest, Polly Letofsky, with her walk around the world. Oh my gosh, I am just in awe. I'm in awe. So tell us, what are some of the highlights? Like, what are some of the fun memories that you had, or some of the incredible moments that you made on this journey?
When I was planning my walk, I had pictured that I was rarely going to run into people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. This is what I'd planned for. I'd planned for how to deal with loneliness, the inevitable loneliness.
Okay.
That's what I was planning for. So what happened was, and you say, what are some of the highlights? I picture this not only a highlight on my walk, but my life, and I can't over stress that enough. But about the 4th day into my journey in Australia, I met someone on the side of the road who happened to be the president of a local Lions Club. And she said, well, who are you and what are you doing? And she'd heard my funny accent. And I told her what I was doing and who I was. And she said, well, the Lions Clubs have got to get involved with this. And she took me to her house and took me to her Lions Club event that night, passed me to the next Lions Club. They passed me to the next Lions Club. And that started a snowball's effect of Lions Clubs helping me all over the world, and became an international sponsorship. So if you're going to walk around the world, you have support of something like the Lions Clubs, and they took such good care of me.
Wow. What a great plug for the Lions Club. Like, really? Like, hello, Lions Club.
Yeah. And I don't think it would have worked if it had gone the other way around, meaning prior to leaving, I'd try to contact the international president.
Like, no.
They'd go, that's cute. But no, it had to almost work just like it did with that grassroots effort.
Well, what a beautiful, like, what I always love, I love humanity, right? Like, because I think that these stories like this, just allows us to see, like, people are good. right? And there's a lot of good being done in the world, and what a profound way to support you. And again, like I believe it's like kind of divinely guided in that way.
I really do. If you think about what the chances of me being successful on this had to be pretty slim. And I don't mean just my mindset, because there was never one time that I thought about quitting. And we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But there's also things like, global events going on. There's also diseases, random viruses that can get you and have happened to people traveling.
Yeah.
And to say nothing about them out walking on roads. So you got the animals, you got the bugs, you got the trucks, crocodiles, snakes.
Yeah. Bears, oh my.
Yeah. So the chances of me actually making it are pretty slim.
Yeah.
That's why people haven't done it.
Yeah.
And then you have the weather and earthquakes and floods, and those things did happen. So the chances of making it are pretty slim.
And I was as I was reading through some of your chapters in your book, like you only had a little small buggy. Like you didn't have like a whole. I mean, you didn't have a ton of supplies with you.
No, I got a baby buggy, and they sort of revamped it to be a backpack on wheels. And then everything had its own stuff sack.
Yeah.
So the clothes had a stuffed sack, and all the chargers had their stuffed sack, and the sort of computer equipment had their stuffed sack. So this one was purple, and so that's how I lived.
Yeah.
And I still have Bob the buggy. I still have Bob the
Bob
buggy.
the buggy.
Yes, he's retired into a kitty bed.
It's like Wilson from the volleyball. Like what was that? What movie was that from?
Yeah,
I don't
Castaway.
remember. Castaway. Yeah, Castaway.
Yeah, that was my Bob. So I pushed Bob around.
Bob the buggy.
And Bob got a lot of press coverage around the world. So the Lions Clubs were definitely, to get back to your question, the Lions Clubs were definitely a big highlight. And there were other highlights, like I met Gandhi's granddaughter.
Wow.
She came out to greet me and took me on a personal tour of his home. So that's a big moment.
Wow.
But a lot of times the moments I remember, because those are the moments you're on. You're on, and you can't just be yourself and get swept up in it. And so I have those moments. Like I remember this random moment crossing the Westminster Bridge into London. And it was late at night, and I was just by myself. And thinking back to the moment when I first started planning, thinking, wow, someday I will have walked into London. Won't that be amazing? And here I was doing it. And that's when you get deep into the moment and you live it.
Yeah.
And you can't share that with anyone. They're like, yeah, that's it. I think meeting Gandhi's granddaughter would probably be a bigger deal.
No, as you were talking about that, like it brings tears to my eyes, because it's like that moment we realize.
Yeah, you're doing it and you've done it.
And I mean, like for anyone who's done big things, like it's a powerful moment. Yeah.
Yeah, the step by step is very literal in this case.
Yeah.
So that was a big moment. And coming back to America after 3.5 years of overseas, and everything America had been through while I was doing this, because 9/11, the events of 9/11 happened when I was halfway through, and I was in the Muslim world when that happened. Little old Jewish American girl in the Muslim world during 9/11. That was a big game changer. That was a pivot point. And I learned a lot about myself and how to handle those times you have to prepare to be unprepared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the epitome of that. 9/11 happens. I was surrounded by people that were helping me, the Lions Clubs and everything. But nonetheless, nobody knew exactly what had happened. Remember in those first days?
Yeah.
And how do I react to it? Do I jump on a plane and fly home? Or do I just pause for a moment, ask for help, and not make a knee-jerk reaction?
Yeah.
And here I was surrounded by these very well-connected Lions Club members. And that's when I asked them, listen, guys. And when I say, hey, guys, I mean 80 people every day, all day. So listen, guys, do you think you could help me make connections with the International Lions Club president so I can actually have connections all the way around the world? It'll help me stay safe. They said, we'll give it a shot. And they met me that night, and they said, done deal. And that's when the Lions Club became an international sponsor.
Yeah.
And I had that support at my feet, so to speak, because we didn't know what was going on. on those first days. So that's how that happened.
Now you mentioned earlier, I want to come back to this real quick. You mentioned earlier that there was never a thought about quitting.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a question I get all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise you, not one single time, not ever, did I think about quitting. Now, there were miserable times.
Yeah.
There was bitching and crying and moaning and bawling and all the rest of it. But there was never a time I thought, gave it a good shot.
Yeah.
I think I'll hitchhike to the nearest airport.
Yeah,
and
there's
call
no
it a
check-in
day.
exits.
It was very much like a contract for me.
Yeah.
It was a contract. Like, you go to work every day.
Yeah.
You don't get up and, the weather's a little dodgy. I think I'll just call in and say, not today.
Not today.
No, that wasn't the deal. It was a contract. It was a job for me.
Yeah.
And I knew going in there were going to be miserable times. Here's what I discovered is that, this was a 5-year event. And over the course of 2 years, I realized that this ebb and flow was going on of good times, bad times, good times, bad times. And when I realized that, it helped me really accept those bad times because I was not going to stay in those bad times. It was just a small storm overhead, and that a storm has never stayed overhead. It's temporary. And once I realized that pattern, it helped me accept the bad times and just go, here we go.
Yeah.
And
and that's true in life, right?
Exactly.
That's our human experience, right?
Yeah. The problem is, of course, then there were really good times. I'm like, geez, here we go. Because you knew you were coming down the other side. So I would love the good times for, have your celebratory moment and your moment of peace and joy, and then go, okay, here we go, brace yourself. Because I did notice that.
Yeah.
So that helped me accept that bad times wasn't the beginning of a trend. It wasn't an excuse for the exit ramp.
Yes.
It just was a learning experience, and I would come out of it.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been most delightful. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people connect with you? And I know that you have your book today, so let's share that with our audience, her book, 3 Miles Per Hour. And where can people connect with you?
It's at Letofsky.com. Now, no one knows how to spell that. Polly, and then Letofsky is Letofsky. And I will say that it took me 5 years to walk around the world and 6 years to write the book about it.
So we're going to have you come back because we got to unpack that story as well. So thank you, Polly, for just giving other people permission to be awesome, right? So, what an inspiring story. And I think that you are going to impact more people than you will ever know.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, be bold, be brave, be fearless, be the magic of you. Massive love to all of you, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell to find out about my upcoming shows. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time.